Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mayor Barry Gordon, and welcome to our City Council meeting, the 7th of April, 2020. We're starting our work session and briefing, and we do understand that we do have some citizens that have logged on in audio-only mode. We are broadcasting in video for the first time, so there may be some technical issues as we go along, hopefully not. But we want to make sure that everything goes well for us. It's the first time going for video. So the timestamp for starting our session tonight is 6:04. And with that, we want to read some information just to get us underway. In accordance with the order of the Office of the Governor issued March 16, 2020, the City Council for the City of Duncanville will conduct a City Council regular meeting by video conference at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, April 7th, in order to advance the public health goal of limiting face-to-face meetings, also called social distancing, in an effort to slow the spread of coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. So this is an open meeting conducted by video conference. There will be no public access to our physical location. And to submit public comments, an email needed to have been submitted to our city secretary by this afternoon. I believe this is at 4 o'clock. And information from City Secretary tells me we do not have any citizen comments that will be provided for this time. So we will go ahead and begin our briefing and working session. And just for our City Council members, we have in-house present myself, Councilmember Patrick Harvey, Councilmember John Jameson, Councilmember Don McBurnett, Councilmember Mark Cooks. We also have staff. We have City Secretary Kristen Downs, Assistant City Manager Paul Fredrickson, City Manager Kevin Hugman, and Director of Public Works Greg Ramey. And we are practicing social distancing, and we are also ensuring that we are not having anybody in this room greater than the number of 10 at any one time. Council members and others that may need to speak here, please remember that you need to announce yourself before you speak and identify yourself as we did last time. I'm sorry?
Identify who's on the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, and okay, we have coming in on video, we also have Councilmember Monty Anderson, Councilmember Joe Vera Cruz, and City Attorney Bob Hager. Anything else I need to haven't covered? Y'all think I need to say? Okay. All right. As for some housekeeping as we go, as I said, each council member has to announce themselves before speaking. And for Councilmember Vera Cruz and Councilmember Anderson, I'll do my best to watch the screen to see if you want to raise a hand. Give me an indicator that you'd like to speak so that I can recognize you, so that we don't speak over on top of each other. Y'all got that? Okay, thank you. Okay. When it comes time for a vote, when we get into City Council itself, we will be doing roll call votes as we did last time. So we'll now move into our briefing and working session and discuss the items on the agenda. And City Manager Kevin Hugman is going to read through the consent items on our agenda. Mr. Hugman.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. City Manager Hugman. Tonight on your consent agenda, item 4A are the minutes for the March 3rd, 2020 City Council regular meeting and the March 19th special City Council meeting. Item 4B is a resolution authorizing a second amendment to a contract with Tyler Technologies through Sourcewell, which is formerly known as National Joint Powers Alliance contract, to purchase additional software, this being the Utility Billing Customer Information Suite, in an amount not to exceed $139,415. As you know, Council, we have previously implemented 2 phases of the Tyler Technology software platform. The first phase was to replace our financials and human resources modules, our general ledger. The second phase is our public works modules, which includes work orders, asset tracking, planning, modules, and development review, etc. This would be the third phase and would implement the utility billing customer information suite. This would replace our current utility billing software, which is a 23-year-old legacy software system. This would, by integrating this with our general ledgers and with Public Works, would provide a more seamless information flow and would upgrade our utility billing software to a system that would give us a lot more flexibility than what we currently have with the legacy system. Currently, it costs us about $99,000 a year to support the current system. Purchasing the Tyler Technology system, then the annual maintenance cost would be reduced to under $10,000 a year.
Quick question on that, Mr. Hugman. The previous, I'll call them the implementation consultants that we use, will be helping us with these installations as well and these modules?
It's the same company. It may not necessarily be the same implementers because they have various implementers who are familiar with those specific modules.
Okay.
So they have provided but from Tyler, they will assign the implementers to work with us. We will not be using a third-party management like we did on the financial one. So we are not doing that with the Public Works. We're not using a third party, and we will not do that with the utility billing either.
Very good, thank you.
Mark Cook speaking. City Manager, so on this particular one, this is the last of the four?
Of the four
modules?
Don't think there was is there another module that we're looking at? I think this was
No, this time, you know, we can always use it for utility, or sorry, for courts and so forth. But yeah, this would be kind of this will be the fourth module that we'll be purchasing.
Okay.
That'll be tying into our whole system.
How do we budget for that? Remind me how we budgeted for that. When I was reading, I couldn't find that. It looked like it was maybe out of budget or in budget. Help me out.
So this was part of the automated metering infrastructure that we have been talking to you about, and so the council, we allocated, if you recall, in this year's budget. We previously had $1 million allocated for that project. This year, in this current budget, we discussed it with you. We upped it to $5 million because we recognized that the cost of installing the meters was going to be higher than we had anticipated. Okay. So we have the funds in the budget for this module. Now, although this is related to the automated metering infrastructure, the AMI, it's not, we need to do this regardless of moving forward with the AMI. So right now, the AMI is still out there, but this needs to be done to replace that 23-year-old software system. Gotcha. But this is a component then that would move us farther down that pathway.
All right, thank you.
This is Patrick Harvey. Mr. Hugman, so in terms of the funding of this particular project, you mentioned the $5 million earlier that was reserved in Water and Sewer Fund. So this particular purchase is going to be funded by that $5 million?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mark Cooks. Patrick Harvey Councilman Harvey just mentioned, is it the water fund?
The utility fund.
The utility fund. This is coming from the water fund.
Water and sewer utility fund.
Okay. Did we not just have a line item differently that we could have put this in versus utility water fund? Or is there not another budget line item that we could have used?
Well, this is an appropriate purchase out of the utility fund because it is supporting the water and sewer utility and solid waste. It's the billing system for water and sewer. So it's appropriate to be in there. When we discussed this with you previously and we allocated that amount in the reserve funds for the whole total umbrella of AMI, we did not know yet specifically what pieces we were going to have to do because we were looking at different options, we were looking at different costs. But this was one that we mentioned that we were probably going to move towards, but we did not move far enough along. We've not moved far enough along to be able to break out all of the different pieces to where we had them itemized under that $5 million umbrella.
Okay. All right, thank you.
That's the answer.
Well, thank you.
Councilmember Jameson, so now we're taking $5 million out of the water and sewer fund. It's not general fund.
There was $5 million in the fund balance of the water and sewer utility fund that has always been there. Previously, we had $1 million set aside for this project. this past year, our reserves were higher than what we needed, but we discussed with you allocating or changing that reserve amount in there to 5 million for the AMI. So it's always been there. It's just been earmarked now for this project.
But it's been sitting in the water and sewer
Yes,
fund.
ma'am. Yes, it has.
Okay, well, this may answer some of the questions. I know I continually get phone calls and people asking me, where is all the money in the water sewer fund? And we have 5 million sitting there?
Well, but it's been shown in the fund balance, and we have, every time we show that, we bring up that part of that is earmarked for this AMI project. So it's there in the overall fund balance, but a portion of that fund balance has been earmarked.
We through?
Sorry.
So how long will this process take?
On the implementation for this module,
We're looking at about 9 months.
That's Mr. Frederickson.
I'm sorry, Paul Frederickson, Assistant City Manager. We're looking at about 9 months once this is approved. So by the end of this year, at the end of this year, we hope to have this system up and running. And again, City Manager Hugman mentioned that regardless of whether we move, how fast or whether we move forward with AMI, we still need to do this, just because when you look at the maintenance fees and what we have to do with this legacy system, it costs us more to maintain this system than it would be to go to the new system. And the fact that it's part of the ERP family, it's part of the Tyler family, so it'll integrate with our financial system and of course the public works modules that are being implemented as we speak. They're now actually on the second phase of the ERP for public works on the code enforcement, building inspection, and planning modules.
So what does that leave in the fund?
Well, this is only 132,000, so
5 million minus that.
minus this,
Of
right?
that,
But I mean, we don't,
minus
so
that.
we don't have any more than the 5 million?
no, that is not, sorry, City Manager Hugman, no ma'am, that is not correct. We do still have an adequate fund balance, even excluding the 5 million. We had an over our target on fund balance because of this allocation that was in there. But that was what we've been talking about for the last couple of years, is leaving that in there earmarked for this. But no, we still have an adequate fund reserve. Even if we spent the full 5 million out of there, we still have an adequate fund reserve in the utility fund.
and this is Patrick Harvey City Council. And I think part of that funding stream also was an arrangement that we have with TRA, right, where we got some one-time money from TRA, and then that was kind of earmarked for this as well.
That's correct, Councilmember Harvey. That was, City Manager Hugman, that is correct. That was the $1 million that we received in final payment on Joe Pool Lake from the settlement of that, the court.
So are we receiving any more money from them?
No, ma'am, that was a
That's
one-time,
it?
that was a one-time settlement on the building of the lakes that had been hanging out there for many, many years.
And we still own something?
We do not, yes, ma'am, we own a portion of Joe Pool Lake,
Right.
the water rights. The next item on your agenda is item 4C, which is a resolution finding an emergency and approving an award contract for emergency repairs and security upgrades to the median lighting on I-20. And this is from city limit to city limit, Cockrell Hill Road to Cedar Ridge Drive on I-20. As you know, we reported to you previously that we discovered that the lights were out on some of the circuits. When we went in there to find out what had happened, we found that the wiring had been stolen, and so the boxes had been broken into. Someone pulled all of the electrical wiring out, the copper, and that ended up creating both lighting circuits were broken, and so we have to go in and rewire all of that. So we have gotten estimates from our contractor, our lighting contractor, and that includes then rewiring both circuits, running that new wiring, and also for underneath the bridge at Camp Wisdom. It also includes security upgrades to the pole boxes and the ground boxes by putting stronger covers, concrete reinforced boxes and lids, and then also includes a cost in there for closing lanes, so traffic control as per TxDOT requirements. This funding would come out of our general fund reserves.
I have a question on that. Councilmember Jameson, did we do a police report on it?
Yes, ma'am, we did. And we did a police report, filed that report. We also talked with our insurance agent, TML, however, what we found was that that lighting is not covered under our schedule of coverage with insurance. And what they said was most cities do not include that in their coverage. So we will not get reimbursed on insurance, but that's why also we want to go ahead and put that reinforcing in there.
So now they will not be able to penetrate it to take copper out, the cement casing.
Out without a lot of extra work and jackhammers.
So
it would be a lot more
visible.
suspicious. Correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, because I thought about it, and I know that, TxDOT over there, where's it, like Garland, Mesquite, that they have cameras all over I-20. And you can see I-20 all over. And I thought, we'd probably even pull tape and see who was doing it.
If they have coverage there, we can check, see if they have
It's
coverage.
all over. They're watching you all the time, everywhere. That's how they know on traffic flow. So, but I guess if insurance doesn't cover it, doesn't matter.
Item 4D is a resolution rejecting all the bids received for demolition services on the property at 730 East I-20. That's the former Toyota dealership. As you know, about a year ago, we brought bids for demolition. The council decided not to move forward with that. And then over the past year, looked at that property and how best to use that or what to do with it. Council directed us to go ahead and move forward with demolition again. In January of this year, we put it out for bids and received 6 bids back. 2 of the bids were not responsive because they altered the bidding documents. And then the lowest bid, when we checked references, we determined that the lowest bidder did not have the qualifications necessary for lead abatement. The next lowest bid was significantly higher, and therefore we are requesting that council reject all the bids and let us go out to bid again.
This is Barry Gordon. The only comment question I was having, I know that the last time we went out for a bid on some procurement action, there were over 300 individuals on that list. And I would presume that going back for demolition, we'll be using, what's it called, what is it, Mark? High utilization.
Historically utilized.
Pub and MWBA references again.
And we did that.
Get some responses, yeah.
Yes, sir. We did that, and it was sent out to 148 historically underutilized businesses. 100 vendors were solicited through public purchase. We also sent out the bids through the Black Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Regional Hispanic Contractors Association, and the North Central Texas Regional Certification Agency. So we're trying to get that out to everyone.
Councilman Mark Cooks, thank you, city manager, for doing that. I know we talked about that many times, and thank you for you and the staff for reaching out beyond that as well to do that.
Those are all of the items on the consent agenda.
This is Barry Gordon. I noticed on my copy of the agenda, there's position here for taking a motion and taking a vote on this resolution at this time. But we're under consent agenda. Is that necessary? Or what?
No, that's when I read it.
Okay. Got it. Okay, so now Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
No, sir, we're briefing. We're still briefing.
We're briefing.
We're still what?
We're over here.
You gave me too much information.
I know. He's like, it's too much red. We're just right here. He was just discussing that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Barry,
Yes, ma'am.
since we're not doing the meetings the same way, with being in here, then going out there, can't we just vote on it and move on?
We're still under the briefing
We're
session.
still under
of
the briefing
agenda,
session.
though.
But it doesn't matter. We're not going in there. We're staying right here and just doing the meeting.
We haven't convened though into the regular session of the agenda though.
Bob, can we,
Yes.
can we just vote?
No, no, the way the agenda is posted, you can't take any action item until you complete your briefing and executive session. Because
Then-
it says that you won't start the executive set or the regular session until completion of the work session or 7 o'clock. And since you haven't completed work session, it'd be inappropriate at this time.
So in future meetings, if we're still on teleconference, then can we change it so that the meeting is the meeting?
Sure.
'Cause-
We'll work with the city attorney to
Yeah.
fix the agenda to make
You
sure
have
we
no
can do. So
reason to
basically, we
find
would
it.
have the briefing and then you would move into the regular agenda.
Well, I got confused and messed things up, so.
Well, not really. I mean, it just makes sense
It just
that
makes
we're
sense.
not going out
It's
there.
not duplicating the effort.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can do it again.
One of the things that I would caution you guys about on that is to make sure, if we do that, Ms. Jameson, to make sure that our citizen input thing is beginning before we actually take action items. So we'll work on that for future agendas.
Well, that'd be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're moving on to briefings and presentations, item 2, in the consent agenda.
Yes,
Yes, correct.
That's correct.
Okay. City manager, this is updates on COVID-19 actions taken in the city.
Yes, sir, Mayor and Council, I put this on the agenda to provide you a brief update on some other things other than what I've been putting into my memo to you a couple of times a week, and then also give you the opportunity to discuss or have any questions that you might have regarding the COVID-19 response. First, as you probably have noticed, I've been trying to update you twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays with a brief memo and kind of giving you any new status that we have. Things seem like right now are kind of settling out as far as our actions, but I hope you're finding that information useful. I do want to let you know of a couple of things that, though otherwise and more broad, a couple of specifics and then some more broad discussion with you on what we are doing. First, I do want to note that that this coming weekend being Easter weekend, we have discussed and intend to close Harrington Park since we have gates on that park and it's mostly ball fields anyway. We plan to close that park on Thursday evening for the Easter weekend because we know Easter weekend too is traditionally a lot of people get outside and if the weather's nice, we're just again trying to keep people from congregating too much. Lakeside and Armstrong Park, we will put the portable lighted message board out at each of those parks just to remind people to practice good social distancing. I want to mention then as well on what we are doing as far as our code enforcement, health inspector, and our fire marshal. We are working very closely with businesses and trying to make sure that they understand what the orders are, the county orders. That directive and guidance has been changing significantly since this began 3 weeks ago, and especially once the county ordered the shelter in place. If you've read through those orders or watched the news, you know that there's been a lot of discussion about essential businesses. Through the course of the couple of weeks, the county judge has been clarifying a lot of those different categories and not changing them really, but just providing more clarity, more guidance. And that has caused us to have to each time look at that, determine how that fits. You can imagine right now what we're running into is gray areas in a lot of different places with businesses. I do want to say that what we have seen is very good compliance from our businesses. Very pleased with that. They are trying to do the right thing. We are getting some questions from some of them as to whether they should be open or not. And as we look at those, we're trying to interpret the order, trying to interpret our mayoral order with those that are not specifically called out. But our intent is to first educate. We have not issued any citations, and we will not issue any citations without management review and approval of that. Because, again, as I said, what we are trying to do is when we get something, we're looking at it, And if it's not fitting into these categories nicely, we're trying to decide whether they are or are not. So I just want to let you know that that's how we're working through on all of that. Third item I want to mention, as you can imagine, and we know that the economy is taking quite a hit, and we know that Duncanville businesses are taking quite a hit, and that is another reason why we're trying to be sensitive to that in our efforts. Looking at that from the budget perspective, because we are entering into the budget season, but several weeks ago, directed all of the departments to reduce their expenditures to only mission essential, mission critical type of expenditures. We have looked at all of our personnel vacancies and frozen all of our vacancies except for public safety. We will look at those on a case-by-case basis if the need arises, or we are like in utilities, field, public works field crews. If we need to open that up, we will. But right now, we're placing our vacancies on hold. We know going in, and we're trying to evaluate what kind of impact this is going to have. We know it's going to impact sales tax significantly, but we won't see that until probably the May sales tax reports. So because sales tax runs 2 months in arrears. So the impact of this month, we won't really see until May. So we also know that there's going to be impacts to revenues as far as court fines and court citations, because one, we're not interacting as much with people. Secondly, all of the court cases have been placed on hold, the docket. So we know that that is going to impact us from that standpoint. Hotels are going to be impacted. We have, as I sent to you earlier, the letter that we sent to them saying that we would defer their payments for a couple of months. But we also know that their receipts, that their lodging is reduced. So we're going to expect to see some reductions in hotel occupancy tax revenues as well. So all of that to say, we know that that this coming year is going to be very challenging, and it's going to be very hard to predict what it's going to look like. But we are trying to make efforts now to position ourselves. We feel like we're in good shape. We have a healthy fund balance, but we are positioning ourselves to be in the best shape we can going into the new year. And then the last thing I did want to mention, because we are talking about businesses as well, I would like Economic Development Director Jessica James to comment briefly on what we're doing from an economic development standpoint, what she's doing, the ED department, with trying to help our small businesses. Jessica, are you on the line?
Yes, sir, I am. Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Hudman. Yes, the economic development staff has been working very closely with our representative, our local representative for the U.S. Small Business Administration. Whenever we get updates in terms of what programs are available for businesses, different resources, immediately we've been putting those up on the website. In addition, we've been working with public information to disperse that information throughout the community via different social media platforms that the city uses, in addition to the city website. We also have been working, Mr. Hudman spoke earlier about code enforcement and about them making contact with businesses as well. And so last week, 166 letters went out, just kind of giving them the overview, as Mr. Hudman spoke about earlier, from Dallas County. But in addition to that, we also placed information at the bottom of the letter that included information for resources for small businesses. So we've been looking at many different ways that we can get that information out to try to assist them. We've been in direct contact with the hotels and with multiple businesses throughout the last few weeks. We will continue to work with the Small Business Administration to keep that information updated and to keep our businesses informed. In addition to that, the Duncanville Community and Economic Development Corporation will be looking to hold a meeting this month or in the next few weeks, and that will be one of the topics that we discuss in terms of what role the Economic Development Corporation can play in this in terms of assisting businesses. Obviously, first and foremost, we'll have to get feedback from the different businesses in the community in terms of what their resources that they really are in need of currently as well as long-term in order to best determine our ability to assist them. There have been talks about different grants and loan programs. Obviously, loan programs have some challenges associated with those, but the corporation, the board will be reviewing different options, having discussion about that, and then at some point we can bring that back to council for an update in terms of different ways that the board feels like is the best to try to assist our local businesses and keep them moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Council, that's all I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Seeing none?
Yeah, Mark Cooks speaking. Hey, so Jessica, when you mentioned holding a meeting, were you saying, was this the economic development you hold a meeting with, or the business owners, or both?
Well, both. We will, obviously we'll have to get feedback and input from the different businesses, and that wouldn't be obviously necessarily in a meeting component. We would probably do those on individual calls and try to get a good cross-section of feedback from the different categories within our community, but then also the board, we plan to schedule a board meeting for them to review input and to come up with some ideas on ways that the board can assist the businesses within the community.
I think this, Mark Cook speaking again, I think this is so important, and thank you, Jessica, for leading the EDC through it. But I think it's so important that not only is the EDC looking at it from a board perspective, I think it should be a leadership piece where the council joins in with those types of meetings with small businesses to help the engagement. And it's not something we do when this is over. It's something we do once we can start meeting again. But I think it's important that they see the leadership of the council there, and we don't wait until it's an opportunity to be something brought to us, to give us some thoughts and give us some ideas of throwing back to the businesses. But it's more so, it's a listening session as well. And I'll say this for sure, it is not always about how much money we can put to this, because we know we also are limited when we talk to budget items. But sometimes it's just communication, it's just some thoughts and some things that we can do that may not always cost some money. It could be just a round table of talking to businesses. So I would hope that the economic development and staff will also include, if council is open to it, to have council, or some council, not the whole council, whoever wants to designate themselves to kind of work with that, to be a part of listening in. And I don't think it's just a portion where we say, we can come just sit in. I think it's something, leadership at the table, talking to small businesses, making sure it's not just chamber members, but it's in the entire city. I think that Jessica just talked about different lines of businesses throughout the city that will help. But I think some leadership around the table needs to be a part of that meeting as well when we start that up.
This is Barry Gordon. Mr. Cook's, interestingly, part of what I was going to cover in my mayor's report. There was a conference call this afternoon with mayors and judges with Governor Abbott. And he had on the line with us Congressman Kevin Brady, who was one of the authors of the CARES Act. And in his comments, in fact, one of the things he recommended was got a difference to see.
Sorry.
It's okay. He recommended that local municipalities do what he called economic recovery task forces. I know that you had mentioned something earlier, and that Mayor Johnson had established some task forces for the city of Dallas. And at that particular point in time, things were just getting underway. One of the things that I think is important now, that we can probably do something as a leadership of our city, within the council, those that want to participate as an ad hoc economic recovery task force, because we're so much more knowledgeable today than we were 2 weeks ago in terms of what Congress has passed and what's available through the SBA, the $2.2 trillion CARES Act and how that trickles down. $349 billion is now available under the payroll protection program and all those things. So as we have now become more educated, I think we're now in a position to speak intelligently to our business community and give them some advice and things that they can and can't do in terms of helping them out. If you don't mind, I could cover some of the items that relate to those assistances for local that I was going to cover in my mayor's report. I could do it now, or I could do it later. Why don't I do it later?
Okay,
because we still have to go into executives. We're going to try and go through executive session before we go in, so
Okay.
I'll cover that again.
I just would say this to that, and this is Councilmember Jameson, and that is that I've heard from some of the small businesses in town, and the biggest problem they're having right now is getting through to the Small Business Administration and
Yep.
or to their bank to get through to that money.
And I have some information on that as well.
Okay, because they're not getting through.
Yeah, so I was sure that I'll finish up my comment to Jessica, unless we want to keep talking this subject, but I have one other thing for Jessica before we finish. So.
Okay, and Mr. Anderson wanted to make a comment as well, so.
Councilmember Anderson here. Yeah, I have nearly 400 tenants that rent from me. And so you can imagine what I've been hearing the last few days. It's just that it's been one after another all day. I'm taking all those calls. And one of the things that's gonna, if you're not with an SBA bank, if you're not with an SBA bank, it's been an SBA lender, you're not gonna have any chance of getting anything. In fact, if you get too far down the line, it's gonna run out. We're gonna run out. It's not gonna be enough. And so so there's a couple of free things that I tell people. If you can't pay your rent, first of all, you got to come and talk to me. And this is what a bank would do too. Same thing, Mark can pay you on a bank, but you got to come and talk to me and show me your hardship. We try to work out a plan. We try to work out alternative ways. And I think that this task force, I think, is really good that we're doing that. And I want to be involved in that too as a council member, because we work out different ways. For instance, I had an event center that we worked out a way to do a market where she could at least make enough money to pay her own groceries and stuff. And I've worked with places like Mudhook to do what they're doing, to become a general store. We're working with different other businesses that can actually have the to-go outside the restaurant, to-go drive-throughs where they're not drive-throughs. Because here's what's going to happen. There's many restaurants that you don't know of right now that have gone out of business, that have already gone out of business. We're going to probably lose, I'm guessing, maybe up to 50% of our restaurants. They're not going to open back up. And not as many here in Duncanville, because we didn't have as many as like in Oak Cliff, like in North Oak Cliff. Most of that's going to happen to them. But what I think we have to do now, even before the recovery, is exactly what Jessica's talking about, is we have to get ahead of this, or otherwise we're going to go off the cliff. We're going to really go off the cliff here. And it's not just money, but how to encourage people, how to encourage, because a lot of the people today, I've had men and women, grown men and women crying. I'm telling you, breaking down and crying. I know of one suicide already. I know of a suicide where the gentleman was in business, going through a divorce. He was alone at home, stuck at home. The business was cratering, and he just blew it, shot himself. And so we're talking about massive, if they don't have money for 30 or 40 more days, there's not money, it's going to be really ugly. And so I think we need to really get prepared, and I think we need to have this meeting, even if we have a teleconference, or start to really be public that we're here. And I'm glad to hear Jessica working on this. But I think we really need to be public that we're here to help. And those of us that can help mentor. So Jessica's probably bombarded with things right now, can help mentor and guide some of these people through. Some of us that are older, I've been through 5 financial crises in my career, and never took a bankruptcy or a foreclosure. So there's ways to get through this. There's ways you got to keep moving. You can't just go home and pull a blanket over your head and watch Netflix. There's things that you can be doing at home and sharpening your skills and doing things. And I think that we need to be getting that word out there. Let's see what you can do with what you've got right now. whatever that is, just to keep your skills sharpened, your sanity, and keep those things together. So I think this is really good that we're going in this direction. So thank you for doing that.
Mr. Cooks, did you want to?
Yeah, one more thing.
Make a final comment?
My final comment is that tell us, either Jessica or Kevin, how you think this is going to affect the hotel motel payout for organizations that we support through the hotel motel dollars grants that we do already, and not only coming up here latter part of the year. I know it's going to be a decrease of what we have in that accounts now. Are we paying out on those, or will we be paying out on those, or what's kind of some concepts that will affect those nonprofits?
City Manager Hugman, Councilmember Cooks, that's a good question. We haven't really looked at that, but what I will tell you is that we know that some of the projects that you allocated hotel occupancy tax funds for, like the Gasso tournament, have been canceled.
Okay.
So we know that that's not going to happen. Some of the other ones, I know that, and then even in the next fiscal year, some of those events, we don't know how they're going to flesh out. So I don't know that we're going to see all the requests we've had in the past.
Okay.
That will be factored in, in looking at what our fund balance is in the hotel occupancy tax fund and what our expected revenues will look like. So all of those things we will be looking at. But I think probably, I would expect that we're going to see less in the way of requests too, because there may be some of those events that will not happen.
All right, thank you. I think those are my questions, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. If there's no more discussion on that, I think we can conclude our open briefing session, and we can go to executive session. And with that, you need to I'm looking for the
What do we need to do?
Yeah, okay, City Council will leave the video conference to go into executive session by teleconference, and City Council will return by a teleconference once executive session is completed. So we will go ahead and vacate the room, and the only individuals present in the room after we go into executive session will be City Council members. And for information of City Council, I will be taking the notes on this. The City Secretary will not be in the room, and City Manager will not be in the room either. We will only have ourselves and City Attorney present for executive session. We are back on the air, and we are convening our City Council session for April the 7th, and the timestamp is 7:34. The next thing on the agenda is the invocation, and Councilmember Mark Cooks will give that, please.
Let us pray. Oh Lord, our Father, how great is your name in all the earth. We thank you, Lord Jesus, for being our Lord and our Savior. We pray, Father, for our city, the city of Duncanville, that you will continue to have your hand and protection over us, Lord. We pray, Father, for our nation. We pray, Lord Jesus, that you will watch over every citizen in our in our city. Lord, we thank you for being our God and our Father. Now, Father, give us direction and leadership, that you be pleased. Have us to call upon you, Father, upon your name, that every heart, Father, may we call upon you and be saved as needed. Lord, we love you and we thank you. It's in the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please rise, and we're going to give our pledges to our flags.
We don't have a flag.
No, we have. They're that way. We know where they are. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pledge allegiance to the flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay.
Mayor, Council, I do have one quick thing that I would like to note. As all of you know, our Public Information Officer, April Riling, is leaving the city of Duncanville. Tomorrow will be her last day. She has taken a position with the city of Irving and will be their new Director of Communications and overseeing a department of 26 people. So we're very proud of her. We're going to miss her tremendously. She's done an awesome job for us while she's been here, and certainly in this time right now has been very busy and working very hard to get information out to the public on what we're doing. So we wish her well, and again, very proud of her. We have an interim who will be stepping in for her, Alex Hamby, which y'all may not know him, but Alex is the marketing director for the field house. So he will be stepping in and taking on this role as our interim PIO, and has been working with April now for the last couple of weeks. So we think he will do a great job, and we'll certainly have a lot of backup for him to help him through this, but because we know how critical this function is. It's always a critical function, as Councilmember Cook's talked about, being engaged and getting communication, and it's especially critical right now. So, but I just want to say thank you to April and wish her well.
So Mark Cook, can you not freeze April leaving until she can't leave until this is, okay, or maybe not?
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 2, proclamations and presentations. We have none tonight, so moving on to item number 3, citizens input. And that those citizen inputs were required to be received by 4 o'clock by the city secretary, and we did not receive any, so we will move on to the consent agenda. So, city secretary, would you please read the consent agenda?
4A, consider the minutes for the March 3rd City Council regular meeting and March 19th special City Council meeting. 4B, consider a resolution authorizing the second amendment to the contract with Tyler Technologies, Inc. through Sourcewell, formerly known as National Joint Powers Alliance Contract number 110515-TTI, to include the purchase of additional software, being the utility billing customer information suite module, to be integrated with the city ERP system in an amount not to exceed $139,415. 4C, consider a resolution finding a bona fide emergency and authorizing and approving the award of a contract for emergency repairs and security upgrades to the median lighting along Interstate Highway 20 from Cedar Ridge Drive to Cockrell Hill Road, including lighting under and on top of the Camp Wisdom Road Bridge within the city of Duncanville to Siemens Mobility, Inc. for the unit prices shown with an estimated expenditure amount of $145,747. 4D, consider a resolution rejecting all bids received from demolition services for the property located at 730 East I-20, Duncanville, Texas 75116, formerly Toyota dealership, providing for appropriate notice and providing for authorization to rebid.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Councilman McBurnett, motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second. Councilmember Jameson.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second. We need to take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Barracruz, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Anderson, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Cooks, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Jameson, 4 are against.
4.
At large, Councilmember Harvey, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Gordon, 4 are against.
4. Motion is passed. Thank you. Moving on to items for individual consideration. Consider a resolution extending a mayoral declaration of a state of emergency in order as a result of the COVID-19 virus, providing for interim public safety measures, repealing all resolutions in conflict, providing a severability clause, and providing for an effective date. One of the things that we need to do is examine what we're going to do in terms of an extension. I'll turn it over to Mr. Hugman to give us a summary of what those actions necessary that we need to do.
Thank you, Mayor. So on your agenda, we have provided you the declaration and the most recent amended order. As the mayor mentioned earlier, we are duplicating the county judge's order. Whenever they amend it, the mayor is amending his order to reflect that. And so we provided you today the most recent county order. Actually, they've already sent another amendment tonight, I saw, dealing with long-term care facilities, but anyway, as of today, what you have, though, is the most recent order. I do want to make one comment, though, on the order that we did change. The mayor mentioned earlier that we're mimicking the county order, and we have been. In conferring with the city attorney, though, in the county order, it allowed for the issuance of citations, and it allowed for that as a Class B misdemeanor, a fine up to $1,000 and or jail time up to 180 days. Under a Class B misdemeanor, that would go to the county district court. In conferring with the city attorney, what we decided was best is if we reduce that to a Class C misdemeanor, it's still a $1,000 fine, but then it would be handled in our municipal court. And so I will point you to paragraph number 3 in the order, which I don't have a page number, but it's about the 5th page. Paragraph 3 says the Dallas County Sheriff's Office, Duncanville Police Department, and other licensed peace officers are hereby authorized to enforce this order. A violation of this order may be punishable through criminal or civil enforcement. A violation of this order is a Class C misdemeanor, punishable by a fine not to exceed $1,000. It still gives us the ability to go to a Class B if we needed to, but obviously if we issue a citation, it would be our preference to do it within the city of Duncanville. So I just wanted to point that out. As far as extending the order, you know that the county, I believe, actually authorized the judge to go to May 20th. He has made his order, though, to April 30th, which is in line with the city of Dallas and the governor's order. What we were recommending was May 6th, because that would put it the day after your next regular council meeting on May 5th, so you could extend it at your regular council meeting then. If, by some chance, restrictions are lifted and you want to do that and meet earlier, you could call a special meeting. But in order to not have to call a special meeting just to extend the order, we were recommending that this order be extended to May 6th. And otherwise, I or the city attorney will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Councilmember Cooks, I do have just one question. I'm trying to, the funeral service?
That's off topic.
No, it's not here.
In terms of extension of the date is what we're talking about.
Oh, okay, I still have questions on the resolution.
No, that's not the agenda item.
I don't know if I disagree with that. If I have questions on the...
Ask our attorney.
Okay. Hey, attorney, Bob,
Yes.
I have questions on the resolution. Is that on topic or off topic?
On the resolution approving the order.
Yes.
You have a question on the order?
COVID-19.
Yeah, the order, yes, this order.
Question about the mayoral order, is that paragraph 2B25, I think it is? Paragraph 2B25.
Right under religious and worship service.
Right.
Is that appropriate?
Yeah. You can discuss anything with regard to the order or the declaration or the resolution approving.
Okay.
Okay, so you're on the paragraph 2B25, funeral services.
Yeah, funeral services. It didn't indicate how many people. Was that taken away? How many people could attend a funeral services? Initially had a number.
It's right there on the page before.
Religious
Where the thumb
services is 10 or less.
That's religious services, but funeral services, does that include funeral services? Because it's separate.
There would still have to be distancing. If it's prohibited, then it's prohibited. If it's permitted, then you have to practice social distancing. Sorry.
So funeral services is permitted, but it's not a number associated with that.
I believe that the general order is 10 or less.
The requirement that no more than 10 people.
For
So
anything.
that overall requirement, the general and the specific, since there's no limitation in the specific, then you have to go to the general.
You have to go to where?
So the general,
The
Beg your pardon?
general order saying.
General
Okay.
guidelines.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, because
Yep.
Bob, Councilmember Jameson.
Yes.
I understand
Yes.
that 2 different funeral homes in Duncanville are operating differently on what they're allowing and what they're not. I had phone calls on it.
Nothing.
We'll follow up with them.
Right,
Yeah,
and that
James
needs
is
to be
pretty
turned
regular.
over to,
Clayton isn't.
to Kevin or our health officer for them to look into that.
Yeah.
We'll follow up then to make sure that they understand what the guidance is. We have not heard.
Clayton's.
The general order takes precedence over the language here that, without the 10.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Right.
Kevin. What do you want to think?
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing no discussion, the chair will entertain a motion to approve that we extend our declaration to May the 6th, 2020.
Councilman Cook, make the motion.
We have a motion to approve. There's a second.
Councilman McBurnett, second.
We have a second. We take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Vera Cruz, for or against?
For.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, for or against?
4.
Councilmember Anderson, for or against?
Wake him up first.
Hold up fingers.
Councilmember Cooks, for or against?
4.
Councilmember Jameson, for or against? 4. At-large Councilmember Harvey, for or against?
4.
Mayor Gordon, for or against?
4. Thank you. Motion is approved. Moving on to item B, 5B, discuss and consider delaying the city manager's retirement from May 31st, 2020 to a mutually agreed upon future date. We'll open this up for discussion, and anyone who would like to propose a date or have some discussion, please go ahead.
This is Patrick Harvey. I think what would be amenable to all parties is that we accept City Manager Kevin Hugman's resignation for May the 31st. However, we would like to extend it an additional 30 days under the same contract till June the 30th of this year.
It's Councilman Mark Cooks. I would second that motion.
He didn't make a motion.
No, you make a motion, I'm sorry.
Would you like to make
No,
a
no,
motion?
no comment. Okay.
I'll make the motion. Are you making the
Mayor.
motion?
No, I was just
Making
saying,
a
I was just
comment.
making a
So would
comment.
you like-
Okay, I make the motion that we do that.
Mayor, I'm sorry not to interrupt, but it is mutually agreeable, and I just want to let you know that I am agreeable to 30-day extension.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good.
I will make a comment for the motion, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I'll make a comment and say,
You're Mark Cooks, right?
Mark Cooks, Councilman Cooks. I will make a motion to say publicly thank Kevin during this time to even to consider to extend his retirement for 30 days. Really, you didn't have to, Kevin, so publicly, on behalf of myself, I know other council members make their own comment, but I want to thank you for doing that for the city of Duncanville.
Okay, so I make the motion.
Or did you make the motion, Mark?
I didn't make the motion, those are the comments.
Jeanette made the
Councilmember
motion.
James makes a motion to extend Mr. Hugman's
Retirement letter from May 31st, 2020 to June 30th, 2020.
and there's a second.
Second.
Mr. Harvey seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion?
Well, I think there was one other discussion we wanted to talk about, was just making sure during this critical time, I'm sorry, there was
Oh, sir.
Any comments from?
was there comments from,
Yes, I got one.
okay, sorry, go ahead.
Councilman Cruz, again, yes, I agree, Mr. Hudman, thank you so much for staying with us in this fight. I know that your department directors are gonna really appreciate that, and so are all our citizens. And I know we certainly do, so thank you, sir.
Mayor, this is Bob Hager. Just for clarification on the motion in the second, that was to extend the date from May 31st to June 30th, 2020, and that was under the terms of this current contract. I just want to make sure that's clear on that.
We have that recorded, thank you.
Thank you.
And we were gonna ask that, like, you were conservative, fiscally conservative in your spending, and try not to hire a whole lot of people. Since we're,
Councilmember Jameson, I gave you that report at the beginning of what we were doing. Yes, ma'am.
Seeing no further discussion, please vote. This will be a roll call vote.
Councilmember Veracruz, for or against?
For.
Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Anderson, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Cooks, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Jameson, for or against?
for,
At-large Councilmember Harvey, for or against?
For.
Mayor Gordon, for or against?
4. Motion is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. And extend my also personal appreciation to Mr. Hugman for his offer to continue to serve the city during this time of crisis, and for all of your work that's done in the past, and for the leadership of our staff. Thank you very much, Mr. Hugman.
Thank you, Mayor.
Item 5C, take any necessary action as a result of this executive session. There is no action to be taken. Moving on to item number 6, receive the monthly financial report as of February 29, 2020.
Mayor and Council, we did not plan to make any report. We provided you the PowerPoint that the Finance Director, Richard Summerlin, would typically present. He is available here to answer any questions. We're going to answer any questions if you have, but we were not planning to make any report.
Any questions from council on this monthly, from the monthly financial report?
No question but comment.
Yes, sir.
Councilman McBurnett is that I want to thank again the city because it's positioned well. However, we do have some things coming up, and that we do, and I'm glad to hear it say we are going to be fiscally responsible going forward. It looks really, really good, but we know that it's going to be tough. So I just want to put a caveat there that yes, we want to be very careful, but I want to thank these guys for what they've done.
Thank you very much.
Dave Hager has something to say.
Mr. Hager.
No, I'm trying to see.
Oh.
it's changing a lot.
All right.
During our meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
No, I did raise my hand, but I had nothing to say.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. We are officially adjourned at 8:10. Thank you.